Welcome to the Revolve Recap weekly podcast where we help the members of Revolve Church deepen their connection to God, His family, and His mission. As always, I'm David McCumber.
And as always, I'm Bill Lackey.
Welcome. What do we got going on today, Bill? Big
David,
day.
It's a big day.
Big day.
We are going to do what we always do. Try to take over the world.
Recap.
Oh, yeah, recap.
Episode 16 is a special episode. May become a two-parter.
Yeah, because we are going to talk about the planting of Revolve Church. And you know what? There's a lot of reasons that you should stick around.
Can you list me 3 of them?
I can, because there's 3 of them written on this paper in front of me.
There we go.
Reason number 1, 10-year anniversary special podcast edition.
What if I was in church yesterday and I already heard all this?
You're going to hear stories today that blow your mind open.
Never been told before. PG-13.
Number 2, insider's look at the last 10 years, because I was there, and so were you.
Yeah. So, we'll be able to tell the story real good.
Numero C, bonus stories.
Never before told.
I actually think all these reasons are the same reason. It's like just one reason. Special anniversary edition podcast, special anniversary podcast edition.
All right. Well, let's get into the newest segment, or the newest thing, the podcast question of the day. We had something about the question of the day yesterday.
Yeah, so people love the question of the day, and actually when we were at our little party yesterday, had people coming up to me and they were just giving me their question of the day answers.
That's great.
Yeah, they were like, you know what, I would get the Ark of the Covenant so I could kill some Nazis.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
So if you want to answer the question of the day, put your question, because we always respond to the comments, because we only get like 2 or 3.
Yeah, we always respond to Brett and Dina.
Yeah, so if you leave a comment, we'll respond to it. So if you have an answer to your question of the day, leave it, because we love chatting on YouTube comments.
Yeah, I mean, it's all right.
Yeah, there is that one random guy. We didn't know who he is.
Yeah. He was really into it too.
And he just left like random letters. I don't know what it means.
I think it was probably like a Da Vinci Code thing.
Ooh.
Also, someone asked if they could sponsor us.
Really?
And I told him it was $50, and he wasn't interested anymore.
That is steep. It's like
$1 a minute.
It's like 10 gallons of gas.
Well, I couldn't. I was on the spot, David. Okay, question of the day. You ready for this?
I'm always ready, Billy.
If you could have a pet that was like a non-traditional pet, non-domesticated animal, any pet, like if you're like, I want a pet giraffe, like that kind of idea, and you knew it would work out and it would like follow you around, you could like go to the beach with it, go to ShopRite with it, any animal, but it can't be like, oh, a dog. It has to be something unique. What would it be?
Well, first thing that came to mind was dragon. Like
Okay,
a Pete's Dragon situation.
A real animal. Don't even get me started. Okay, an animal.
Are you saying the dragons aren't real?
I personally think dinosaurs are the same thing.
Okay.
Because the word dinosaur wasn't invented until the 1850s, and so I think probably previous culture called them dragons. So anyway, an animal that is currently around today.
Sasquatch.
Again, not the Nephilim. An animal that you could get. An animal. Like an animal that you might see at a zoo.
I don't know why. See, now you're adding too many restrictions. I'm an artist, Bill. I'm a free thinker.
No, you can't think of an answer until you're stalling.
No, the first thing that comes to my mind, I say, and I said dragon, and you're like, nope, bad answer. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Second answer, Sasquatch.
Everybody
Third
would
answer?
want a dragon, David. What kind of dragon are we talking about here? Komodo dragon?
No, the 2-legged ones.
With wings? A wing-a-ling dragon?
A wing-a-ling dragon. All right, Bill. Let me conform to your needs of what the question of the day needs to be. A duck, Bill. I would love a duck to follow me around to the beach. Quack, quack, quack. People be like, oh, it's so cute. Is that the answer that you want, Bill? I want a duck. What's your answer?
Oh, my gosh. Giant squid.
Do you live under the sea, Bill?
I'm just joking.
Do you live under the sea?
My real answer was a bear. Like
okay.
like a bear, but not like too big. Like maybe like a bear the size of like an island that would be in your kitchen, like that tall. So like not a baby bear, but not a grown-up bear, and I could just like
Would the bear be just right?
it'd be just right,
Not too big.
and I would name it Goldilocks, and it would be big enough that I could ride, but I could also just kind of like lean on it when I was tired. And
Could
then,
you lay on it and it would walk you home if you had too much to drink?
I don't think that's gonna happen. I mean, if we're dreaming, then yeah, I want a bear that could bring me home at night, tuck me in.
So it's a magical bear. It's basically a Sasquatch.
All right, David, let's
So
transition here.
if you have a bear or an animal, mythical or otherwise.
Oh my gosh, it can't be a mythical animal. Okay, I want a kraken.
Again, you don't live underwater.
Kraken. This one can. This one can walk. It's got a breathing apparatus made from seaweed. It can come out of the water for maybe an hour and a half tops.
Now it's got a taste for blood.
It's got taste for lion meat.
All right. Yeah, I keep hitting that thing. Sorry. All right, so let's recap the last 10 years.
Oh my gosh, I'm so mad about this dragon situation. If you had a dragon, I hope it's a lame dragon, like the one from Mulan.
Eddie Murphy?
Like a real small.
You know where I'm going with that.
I'm going to get canceled.
We often talk about if people listen to this podcast who don't go to Revolve, they probably think that we hate each other. But everyone who goes to Revolve know that we're good buddies.
Yeah, that's true. Buddy, boys.
Yep, good cop, bad cop. All right. What about Spain? Last week or last sermon.
Yesterday?
Yesterday. Well, I don't know if people are listening.
Okay.
They listen
right.
on Tuesday. Thursday and Friday are our biggest days of listening, but it's because I think Jen sends the email out on Friday.
Oh, okay. All right.
So you talked about Spain. That was the beginning of your ministry. It was, how long were you and Gina married when you moved to Spain?
6 years.
Oh, so you had been married for a while.
Yeah, and we'd actually been doing ministry together even before we were married. So we were in InterVarsity Christian Fellowship together. Gina was the large group coordinator. I was the president. I was also a client. Yep.
And then you decided to go to Spain. Man, I feel like that could be a whole nother segment. We didn't even dip into that.
Nope. You guys could hear all about it. I mean, Emma gave you the quick version.
Yeah.
We met each other, got married, honeymoon, blah, 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 Spain.
FYI, I thought that Emma was getting up to talk about the history of Emma. Because she was like, when a boy and girl fall in love, they get married.
Yeah,
and
I
they
didn't know
go.
what she
And I
was
was
going to
like,
say.
I was like, Emma's going to tell me how babies are made.
I didn't know what Emma was going to say. But she did a nice job.
Yes, she did. Made me feel like an idiot because I can't even
Okay.
form sentences.
All right. So Spain. So yesterday we talked about Spain. Yes. What do you want to know about Spain?
Well, when you got there,
Yeah.
what was it like the first couple months of ministry? I mean, it seemed like your expectations were not being met. So what would a day in Spain look like for Billy and Gina?
Well, expectations weren't being met because
Guillermo and Gina.
I just pictured, they called us Billy Gina. Bill E. Gina, get it?
Got it.
Billy Gina. Man, I tell you what, keep bumping these music stands today.
Yeah.
So
If we get some sponsors, we could get some better music stands. You know what I'm saying?
So you just asked the question, what's a day in the life of Spain and how? Well, see, it didn't meet my expectations because I just thought there was going to be a bunch of bulls running around, and he said to like dodge them.
That's only once a year.
Oh yeah, see, I didn't know that. I thought it was like an everyday thing. So that was one reason. No, so when we went to Spain, the first few months were just language and cultural acquisition. So we were basically in language school 5 days a week. I think that was like 3 months, 4 months.
Now, would you would take a class and you would be in class all day, and then in the evenings, would you be like, hey, well, let's go out to the cafe and work on my new...
No, so in the evenings we were mostly working with the Spanish church, and so we would like go to the youth group. It was like every Friday, and we'd go to like midweek Bible study, and Gina wouldn't go, I would go, because it was like midweek men's Bible study, and I would just kind of like sit there and try to understand what they were saying, and you'd be like trying to not fall asleep,
Okay.
And that kind of stuff. And then I would say as we got involved in like a small group, Spanish small group, and basically it was just learning Spanish, getting to know the church, getting involved in the church, helping the church out with stuff, almost as if like we were,
just on staff at the church.
almost like we were on staff at the church. And I think that part of the part of the thing there was that we were doing so much stuff with the church that there wasn't like a whole lot of time to just try to build relationships with Moroccans who we were there to try to minister to. So I had met one guy from Iran. He was like an asylum seeker from Iran who had fled, and his English was excellent. And I met him in language school. And so we kind of struck up a friendship, but like he was very secular. He wasn't that interested in spiritual stuff, that kind of thing. And then Gina met a girl from Morocco. Her name was Lamia, and she was married to a Spaniard. And so Gina and her started having like a language exchange where that girl wanted to learn English, but like her English was like learning numbers. It was like first year English. And, they wanted to try to share with her. But anyway, so most of the time that was spent in Spain was doing those kinds of church activities. And so we wanted to do ministry with Muslims, but we were mostly spending our time with youth. I would say youth was a big focus, and our small group. And so by the time we left, I was leading Sunday school in Spanish for the youth, and we were doing youth group every week, and we did like a summer youth camping thing and that kind of stuff.
So you were leading in Spanish? You were teaching the youth group in Spanish?
Yep.
That's pretty impressive.
Well, I don't remember any of it now, so.
That's not true. I've seen you preach in Puerto Rico.
Well, as far as you knew it made sense.
That's true. That's why everyone got up and left, because they didn't know what you were talking about.
That's because it was time for siesta.
That's true. I love siesta. All right, so you knew going into, like, you chose Spain because you knew there was going to be a high concentration of Moroccans.
Yes.
So you had a heart for Muslims before.
Yes.
And I know that because I know you, but I'll let you answer it. What was the impetus for your heart for Muslims?
September 11th.
Isn't that crazy?
Yep, September 11th. I had been a believer for like 6 months. I might guess a little bit longer. I've been a believer for like 9 months. And I had spent that first summer after I became a believer in like January, and then I went to the Czech Republic in June, and I was supposed to just be there for a week or 2 weeks, and I canceled my flight home, and I just stayed for like 6 or 8 weeks. I forget how many weeks it was, and really grew a lot. Was on fire for the Lord. Came home, and it was September, and then a couple days later, September 11th hit, and I started preaching on our campus and just like sharing the gospel and these sorts of things. And a guy he was scheduled to come from Arab World Missions as a guest speaker like the week after, just coincidentally, the week after September 11th. And he explained like the history of Islam going back to Ishmael and Isaac. And I just remember from that day on being like, yep, this is where I want to pour out my life.
Yeah. I knew that story, but I was glad that's like one of those stories that a lot of people may not know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if that would be an interesting book club to explore one day. I wonder if we should ever do like a 6-week course on like the history of Islam too. Just maybe,
yeah.
Might be something to explore in the
The
future.
Encountering the World Islam book was a great book though. It's long.
Like 800 pages long.
Yeah. So it has to be at least 8 weeks.
Yeah. Because I read 100 pages a week. So that's where your heart was.
Yes.
And then, so what was the tipping point? At what point in Spain were you saying, we're not meeting any Muslims. Mm-hmm. We're kind of wasting our time here.
So you have to know that when we went to Spain, we were originally going to go to Malaga. And Malaga is where the highest concentration of Muslims are.
In Spain?
In Spain.
Is that a city?
Malaga is along the coast. So when the refugees arrive, that's where they tend to arrive.
Oh, okay.
So where the ferry is, as well as where you see the Moroccans and the refugees. And so anyway, so when we the way that mission agency works, at least ours, is that it had like job postings. And we applied for this, working at a community center in Malaga. And the guy who was running it at the time, 2 guys were running it, one Moroccan who was a Muslim background believer, and one American who was married to a Spaniard. And so we applied for that, and that was our plan. And then the American, whose name is Dan, who we're friends with still, he called us up and he said, hey, we're actually moving to Madrid. But he said, you can come with us to Madrid because we're going to start a community center up there. And he kind of gave us a few reasons why he didn't think we should go to Malaga, which aren't really important for our purposes. But we're like, all right, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if that's what you say is good, we'll do it. Mm-hmm. And so we came to Spain with the understanding we were going to work in a community center. And when we got there, it turned out the community center hadn't been started yet. And so, we talked with our boss, and he was like, well, listen, you got to focus on language. Like, probably in 6 months, we'll be up and running. And then 4 months in, he was like, it'll probably be up and running by the end of your term. And then at the end of 6 months, it was like, it probably will open sometime during your second term, which is now you're talking 4 years out.
Wow. Wow.
And then we were at a meeting with another mission agency in the center of Madrid, where they had a community center as well, but they were from a different denomination, and they didn't really want to collaborate. It was one of those things where well, you do your stuff and we'll do our stuff. And so we're there, and I was just kind of sitting, and my field leader and this guy are talking about ministry, and the guy is like, hey, so when are you opening your community center? And Dan goes, well, we're not doing a community center anymore. We're actually going to plant a church for Spaniards.
And was that you and Gina looked at each other and was like,
yes, it was literally out of a cartoon. Mm-hmm. It was the first time he had ever mentioned it.
Yeah.
And so we got back, and he didn't even talk about it in the car. And then an hour later, I was like, I got to talk to you guys. And we went over there, and I was like, you just basically said we're not doing this anymore. And then he kind of explained all the reasons, and we were like, all right, well, let's give this a fighting chance. But in the months that came, it just we felt like we were getting more frustrated than anything else. So the tipping point was that meeting in Spain, in Madrid, when he was like, well, we're not doing this anymore. And it was well, no one ever talked about it with us. No one ever, we never prayed about it. We were praying weekly together as a team, and the prayer request never even came up.
Yeah.
It was really weird. That being said, the Spaniards bawled their eyes out when we told them we were leaving.
Well, they're very emotional people.
They said that nobody in their history had connected so quickly with the culture that we had. And, we were helping run the youth group, and kids were upset, and so it was a total train wreck.
Yeah. I'm sorry to make fun of your...
Oh, you can make fun of me all you want. That's how I deflect my true emotions.
Yeah, me too. I'm just jealous because no Spaniards have ever cried over me leaving.
Well, don't cry over me, Argentina.
So you and Gina are in agreement 100%. This isn't... I mean, the whole time this is happening, I'm sure at night you guys are having conversations oh my gosh, this is just not what we not what we signed up for.
Yeah, we were very discouraged, especially since, this was all we wanted to do. You know what I mean? This is what we had been devoting our life to for the last 4 or 5 years.
Well, yeah, I'm sure you probably had a fundraise for a year and a half or so.
Even though we'd only been in Spain for a year, we were quote missionaries for 3 years before applying and raising funds and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was 2.5 years of dreams kind of.
Yes.
Crashing.
Just popping the bubble.
All right. So you talked a little bit about this yesterday. You left Spain, and then did you have a contract with the mission agency, and that's why you went to Southeast Asia, or what was the draw to that area of the world?
To that area of the world, or staying with the organization?
Both.
Okay. Well, a contract is a very loose term. I mean, it's like an at will. It's like at will employment.
But you still felt called to the ministry. You still felt called to the Muslim world.
And we knew that we had supporters who were still committed to us. And we were already embedded in this organization, and that process can take a year.
Okay.
And so we were like, well, let's just explore. And so here's what happened. We came home. We went to Colorado, which is where our organization was based, and sat down with the team psychologist, the organization psychologist, who basically told me I was a nutcase. This is a true story. Told me that I probably needed to get meds and professional help. And we just left there, and we were like, what just happened?
Yeah.
One of those things. I don't know what was said about me. I don't know. Anyway, so we So we were like, I don't think that's what we need. I think we just need healing. And so Gina and I took like 4 months where we really just like prayed like crazy. It was, the winter. It was like February to May or something like that. You know what I mean? And we just were praying and praying and praying. And one of the tensions with...
Were you in South Jersey?
Yes.
During this time?
Yeah,
Okay.
we were in Wildwood, living at Gina's parents' house. And during that time, one of the tensions that was in our heart was, like we were of the opinion that you could do gospel ministry and felt needs ministry. Like, so you're working with refugees or immigrants. And so we were saying like, let's start something that gives people job skills and the gospel. And basically, at that time, that wasn't like a common school of thought. It was kind of like, well, you're either giving people the gospel or you're helping them. You can't do both. Like that was almost like, which seems weird, but that was the common view. You know what I mean? And so Gina and I were like, no, this is possible. So one of the things that we did was I went to this place called Equip International, which is in North Carolina. And they do all of the well drilling training for Living Water International. And so I was there for like a month by myself, which was really therapeutic for me because it's like in the middle of nowhere. There's no, like you can't even make a cell phone call. I mean, at the time there was like nothing. And we had to like drive to Walmart in order to make a phone call. So I got my certification to drill wells up to 150 feet, how to build something called biosand filtration systems, which is what you use for places that have a lot of water, but it's not drinkable, like Southeast Asia. And also got my certification in something called community health evangelism. And I was there during, we were praying about like, where would we go? This kind of stuff. And when I was there, Gina wasn't even with me. So it must have been during like biosand filtration or something like that. Osama bin Laden got killed. And I remember we were there and we heard that SEAL Team 6 came in and killed Osama bin Laden. And all I could think about was wondering if anybody had ever shared the gospel with him. Like he hated Christians so much. And I was thinking to myself, like, I wonder if anybody ever witnessed to him. And I remember I called Gina up and I was really emotional. And it was weird because, everybody else was like celebrating, what I mean? And I was like, I'm not saying that I wasn't glad but you understand what I'm trying to say. And I said to Gina, I think I'm always going to regret it if we don't at least try to move to the Muslim world. And so she was like, all right, well, let's pray. And so then Gina came down like the next week and we did the community health evangelism training together. And the guy who led it, his name was Harold. And Harold had been a career missionary in Southeast Asia for like 2 or 3 decades with New Tribe, which is a different organization. And he was like, you should go to this country. Like, you should go to this country. Like, it's the largest Muslim country in the world. It's a great place to live. It's, it's like your wife doesn't have to wear a burqa, like all this kind of stuff. And so we were like, well, let's pray. And so we went and contacted our organization that we were still a part of. And we kind of said, hey, we want to explore this country.
Yeah.
And so we flew back out to Colorado and talked with them in person. And they were like, all right, let's do it. And so we flew out to go to Southeast Asia for I guess it was like a 4-week or a 5-week vision trip in October. So we left Spain in February and we went to a vision trip in October.
Well, before we move into talking about that a little bit more, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. Welcome back after that little break. We had, before we left, we were talking about Southeast Asia. And I think the question that I had yesterday is you were really hitting on this, like, I'm really into the jungle, and Gina's not. So it was a really big decision for her. But you know me, Backpack Billy, like expound upon like because I've seen commercials for Bali. It doesn't look that bad. It's like a jungle paradise.
First of all,
but I've also been.
This is in Bali.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, so I mean, where they were going in. Well, you said Bali, but when we...
Well, you weren't in Bali. That's what
right.
you're saying.
Well,
I'm thinking of Southeast Asia. That's
yeah,
the
you're
thing that
thinking
comes
Bali
to mind.
or Phuket or something
or
like
like
that.
Singapore.
Right,
You know?
yeah. So where they are in Southeast Asia is like just not like that. And so this area that they were moving to is really rural, and it's known for its like scuba diving, and it's known for its not even ecotourism. It's more like type of places that people like National Geographic go.
Yeah, because you could say that Cape May is pretty rural, and it's known for fishing and
like
the
as
beach.
Like if you break your leg, you got to take a couple flights and get out of the country.
Gotcha.
Like that kind of stuff. Or, you know, like when our partners went there, they had to like have a mattress shipped from like, I don't know. It was
China.
like shipped from another island, and
Yeah.
it was brought on like a boat, and then it was brought, you know, that kind of stuff.
Do you poop in a hole?
Pretty close. I
Just
mean,
a hole in the ground and...
So when we were there, now they have really built it up now. It's much improved. But, you know, 10 years ago, I'll tell you a story from when we were in this area. There's like a little bungalow, which is kind of like a one-room tiny house. Like it just was like maybe, I don't know, 12 feet by 12 feet, almost like a yurt type thing, with a bed inside and like a little dresser. And then it had what you would call like a squatty potty. You know what I mean? So there wasn't a hole in the ground, but it was still a squatty potty. And then there'd be a big trash can, like a recycling can, like that you'd put your stuff in at the end of the week. And it was full of water. And the water would turn on in the morning for like 2 hours. And you'd have to fill up the trash can with water. And then you had a ladle. And you would use that ladle to displace whatever you put in the squatty potty and also to bathe. And so like you'd go in there in the morning and you'd get your ladle and you'd just scoop it and throw it on yourself, scoop it and throw it on yourself. And that's how you'd bathe. And then if you went to the bathroom, you'd take a ladle and you'd pour water down the hole to keep pushing it along. And so it's not exactly like this is really fun.
So to be fair to Gina, I don't know if many wives would be really excited about that.
No, I don't think so. I'll tell you. So we are in here, and our friends, they had another little thing next to us because we were on like the team retreat. So this was actually nice. This was like a nice place, like a place where people go on vacation. Okay.
Really nice.
So I just described it to you. This is really nice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In other words, most homes don't have this. And so they had bought a bug bomb in the city. And so before they went out to dinner, they put the bug bomb in their bedroom or their room, and they set it off. And the next morning they were laughing, like couldn't stop laughing because they set the bug bomb off and all the bugs in the room had got the gas and they all climbed up on top of the bed and died.
Oh.
So there was like their entire bed was covered in dead cockroaches, and they had to like sweep their bed off before they went to sleep.
But the cockroaches in your room were still alive.
They were still alive in our room.
Waiting for you.
Yeah. As were the spiders and whatever else was in there.
Nice.
And so it's not that Gina's like afraid of dirt. You know, it's more just like you have to really want to be in a place like that. You know, your kid breaks their leg. It's not like, well, let's just go to Cape Regional. Well, it's not the best hospital. And it's like, no, your kid breaks the leg. It's a problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So just to kind of paint the picture that you were saying yesterday. So you had gotten on board for Spain. You were like focused on this for 3 years almost. And then it changed.
Yeah.
And then you're like, we're really focused on Southeast Asia. Mm-hmm. And this decision may have been a little harder to make, but you were all in.
Yep.
And then it seems like it's changing again.
Yep. And we were even all in to the point where we were wondering, like, should we have kids? Like, we'd been married, 6 years, I said at the time, 7 years, whatever. And we were like, maybe we shouldn't have kids. Like, this is going to be a hard place to raise kids. Maybe we should just choose not to have kids and for ministry purposes. And so, I mean, it's like, It was a decision to make. You know what I mean? Because then you have to worry about where you can't. There's no schools there you can send your kids to. So you either have to homeschool them, which then impacts the amount of ministry you do, or you have to send them to a boarding school, which is what most missionary families do. They send their kids away to a boarding school.
Yeah.
So it's like a significant decision to make.
Yeah. Now that my kids are a little older, I kind of think a boarding school sounds like a good idea.
Well, you can still do it. You could send them to a boarding school in the Philippines if you want.
That would be amazing. I'd get so much work done.
So that's
Do they come back like really behaved? And they like are super obedient, and they're like, "Daddy, we love you."
It's not like The Sound of Music. You know what I mean?
All right. So you went to Southeast Asia. You were like, "This is what we want to do. We're into this. We're going to go home. We're going to fill out a couple papers. We're going to come back."
Yeah. And I think that it's...
And what did God say?
Well, I think I would like to say that everything about Southeast Asia made sense. You know what I mean? So we were excited about Southeast Asia because...
It checked all the boxes.
there was Muslims there, and because it was interesting, but also the team was like a perfect fit for us. Like before we came over for the field, we were going to participate in their field retreat, and they had us do the Strength Finders assessment. I don't know if anybody's ever done that. And
I got them all.
And it was
even humility, all the strengths.
And we just were a perfect fit, personality wise, very similar to the field leader. He's a real go-getter, kind of pioneer, apostolic personality. All that stuff really was good because we're dreamers, and if you put us with bubble poppers, we get really frustrated and really discouraged really quickly. And so we were excited about all that. And so then we came home, and like I said, it just felt like we kept hitting some resistance. And so you said, what were some of those things? Like, having to fill out paperwork to move because you have visa paperwork, residency paperwork. You have, you have to explain to the headquarters why you feel called there and all that kind of stuff.
And all those things started to fall through.
Right.
Doors were closing, I guess you could say.
Yeah, like we would mail a packet of paperwork and they would never get it. And then it's like, well, now we have to do we wait? Do we fill it out again? Like that kind of stuff.
Now, you had said yesterday that you felt a stirring in your heart that maybe God didn't want us here and that you were having more of a calling to plant a church in South Jersey, specifically Lower Township. Mm-hmm. And you said that when you talked with Gina, she was really feeling a lot of the same things. What types of feelings was Gina having?
Well, I didn't have a lot of emotional connection to this area. I didn't grow up here, but Gina did.
Bill, what do you have emotional connection to?
Mostly snacks.
All right.
My pet bear.
Yeah. What a great bear. He's been always there for you.
That's what Billy the Bear. That's what what would I name my bear? It's another quatad, another day. So anyway, I don't want to bash other churches. But when this was happening, it was right when some other local churches were really falling apart. There was a bunch of church splits happening, with some pastors who just up and left or got fired. And it was there were some key guys who were really good guys who got pushed out and had to move. And we had family members and friends who were collateral damage to a lot of this stuff. Some of them had left church entirely. Some of them had, were still going, but they weren't growing. And it was just really sad to us. And we understood that because when we were home, I would say we weren't exactly jazzed about the things we were taking part in either. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But Gina especially really felt that because she had friends she grew up with she was at church growing up with, who were in youth group with, and it's they were falling away. Some of them had forsaken the faith. A couple of them embraced alternative lifestyles that are contrary to the gospel, this kind of stuff.
Yeah. They were smoking cigarettes.
Dancing, bowling.
All the bad stuff.
Right.
No, I think I get that. I feel like I can relate to what Gina was experiencing because it was similar because I grew up here and saw a lot of the same things happening. So you guys were both feeling this call to plant a church
Yeah.
in South Jersey. And you found Acts 29 via Google,
Yep.
which is how I've raised my children.
I mean,
Just
mostly Google. What should I do?
Yeah, what should I do? Now I don't even have to Google it.
Just ask Alexa.
Alexa just hears it.
She just suggests it for you.
She's like, you can get some baby formula.
Did you know?
I hate when she does that.
I do too. I'm always like, Alexa, shut up. Shut up, Alexa.
Yeah. And then you hear your kids doing it and you're like, oh, I'm such a bad parent.
Yeah. Yep.
So you filled out your application for Acts 29?
Yes.
90 hours.
Yes.
Are you just a slow typer or what's the story?
I think, it's funny because like a month or two after that, Acts 29 changed the way they did their application. And I think I might have been part of the reason.
Yeah.
Because they would ask these questions like they would say,
If you could have a mythical animal, and you were like, mythical animals are stupid. Is that how it went?
no, they would say things like, a group of college kids who aren't believers want to know about the Trinity. How would you explain it to them? And then they wouldn't say like, in 500 words or less, how would you explain it to them? And so I would write these I must have written 20 essays.
Wow.
And so they would ask those kinds of questions, or they would be like, what's your philosophy of ministry? And so then I would just write these manifestos about and anybody who knows me knows that if you look at my Google Drive, I have well over 1,000 documents of just that kind of stuff. Like here's what Bill's thoughts are on philosophy of ministry from spring 2022.
What I thought was awesome was yesterday when you were like on April 11th.
That's
we had
Gina.
this,
That was all Gina.
but both of you are very meticulous and you document everything and that's a good thing.
Yeah. Gina's got journal entry. Gina has all of her quiet time journals since she was in 4th grade. She started journaling when she was in 4th grade. She's got dozens of journals.
There was probably one in the year 2000 where it was I met Billy.
Yeah, maybe.
So handsome.
I don't even want to know. She's probably I met this weird guy.
I wasn't Gina
He
on
won't
the trip.
leave me alone.
Wasn't your first trip to check?
Yeah, it was because of Gina. She invited me.
Yeah, and then you didn't go home with her. You
had
stayed in the check. You were like, man, this girl's
Gina
a potential
and I
wife.
were fighting. Gina and I got in a fight because I told Gina I liked her, and she was like, well, I like you as a friend. And then we got there, and she had a crush on some guy named Loiza who didn't even speak English.
Gina is a listener to this podcast,
Well,
and
Gina,
just right now she's going, I know Gina well enough.
And I had a crush on this girl named Becky who was there. And Gina was like, well, I can have a crush on Loiza if you're going to have a crush on Becky. And I was like, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was.
Man, this is a whole nother podcast. It just took a twist. I don't even remember where we were.
This is after the rose.
Shoo. All right. Well, I feel like we should take a break.
Acts 29. That's
Acts
why
29.
it took so long. That's why it took so long, because I answered the questions extremely thoroughly. And then after that, a couple months later, they were they changed it where it was in 200 words or less, tell us about yourself, as opposed to being in 20 pages or less, tell us about yourself.
Yeah. All right. So Acts 29, which is a organization that helps church plants.
Yeah, it's a
But it's not a
network of churches
denomination.
that plant churches.
Yeah. And was in the beginning that was helpful?
Yeah, it was mostly helpful because of one man named Reed Monahan, who's still a friend to this day. And Reed invested in me more than anybody else. They provided for us financially, and Reed used to call me, and we used to do coaching. I forget how often, a couple times a month or something like that. And he was always there. Every time I had a question, I could call Reed. He's just a great guy.
# discipleship.
And he has a podcast called Gospel Underground, if you ever want to check that out. Yeah.
Does it have more than 32 subscribers?
I'm 100% sure it does.
We're such losers.
But Reed's all-American wrestling star. He's got a real deep voice.
I wrestled in 9th grade, and then I had to quit.
Yeah, but Reed's legit. He's got cauliflower ear.
Still.
Well, yeah, it doesn't go away.
Oh, it doesn't?
That's permanent damage so people know how BA you are.
Wow. Man, Reed is so cool.
He's
I
a
like
cool
Reed.
guy.
I like Reed. We should have Reed. We should have had Reed come and speak on our 10th year anniversary. That would have been pretty cool.
Well, he spoke on like our 8th year anniversary, wasn't he, or something like that? 5th year anniversary, he came and spoke. I have pictures of it.
Yeah, but that's the 5th year. What's that? The wood year?
As opposed to the 10 infinity. All right, let's go.
All right,
Keep going.
So you were deciding.
Oh my gosh! You know, when you bump this microphone stand, it sounds like the soundtrack to a samurai movie. Listen. Shigao.
There you go. All right, so you were starting to figure out what you wanted church to be and not to be. Can you give us some of your Ingenias
Yeah.
of what you wanted church to be and not to be? Which is, you guys were in a really cool position because it's like you were laying the foundation. Because I know growing up in the church, it's like, man, I wish we could do this.
Yeah.
But we've been doing it this way for 60 years. So
And that was basically what Joby said to me. Joby, he joined Acts 29 at the same time from the Church of 1122, COE22.com. They're like a huge church now. And he was talking about vision. He goes, and I was like, I don't know. My vision is just like plant a church. And he's like, all the times you sat in the back row and you were like, man, if I was in charge, I would. And I said, yeah. He goes, that's your vision.
There you go.
And I was like, oh, all right.
So what were those things?
I've always felt really burdened for Christians not living out their faith. Like I've always felt really burdened by like people living a double life. It's like, the truth, and how come you're not living in response to it? I've always felt really burdened for that. Like how come Christians don't read their Bible? How come they don't pray? How come they don't share? How come they don't give? Like those basic ideas of like, hey, are you changed or are you not? And so we wanted to plant a church where everyone was equipped to live out their faith effectively, so everybody would understand the basics of discipleship and how to walk forward in that.
Not a bunch of pew potatoes.
Yeah, I never heard that phrase, but
That's because you never went to a church with pews.
No.
Back in the old days, they were pew potatoes.
We called them chair people.
Chair people?
I don't know,
It's like the sand people.
Just made that up.
In Star Wars. All right, so you want everyone to be equipped. You didn't want pew potatoes. What else?
We wanted to be financially generous, and we knew that if we were going to be financially generous, we needed to be frugal and not waste our money on stupid stuff.
Yeah, that's why we have these cruddy mic stands.
I know. But we have this sweet samurai soundtrack.
That is true. No, that is, yeah, not having all this major overhead that isn't needed.
Right.
Because you figure you get a nice building and then you have heating systems, cooling systems, rugs that need to be cleaned. You need to hire all this extra.
I'll give you an example. That's like, those are basic stuff. I'll give you an example. I had a friend who worked at a mega church, and it was like, David knows this stuff because he does graphic design, but like, let's pretend that you printed 5,000 flyers.
Okay.
And then you found one typo.
Oh my goodness. If I would have done it, it'd have 3 typos.
Okay. So I had 3 typos. I'm the kind of person who would have been like, look, this was $6,000. Like, or whatever. How much would that cost? Let's say 5,000 flyers, top
5,000
quality.
flyers.
$500.
$500. Yeah.
So if it was me,
piece.
I would be like, look, it was $500. Like, it's all right. We can just tell people, hey, look, there's a typo. We're try our best, but everybody makes mistakes.
Do you want your friends to go to hell?
Right. And so this church that my friend worked at, if they found that typo on Wednesday and they needed it for Sunday, they would fix the typo, and then they would pay the $1,200 extra to express it.
Yeah.
To like express ship it by Saturday.
Yeah.
And I was always like, yeah, there's a typo. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff where I'm like, I don't see how you could justify that for something that you're going to hand out on Sunday and people are going to throw it out in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And so like that just struck me as like a massive waste. You know what I mean?
I feel like it would be a fun podcast to do, just stuff churches waste money on.
I feel like that's like one of those bitter podcasts though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that.
And so
praise God, because of that mentality, we've given almost $500,000 away.
Since 2016, over $500,000. It was actually almost 600,000, but I wanted to estimate on the low side.
Well, praise God for that. Okay. Financially generous, frugal.
Operate with integrity. And what I mean by that is we didn't want to do stuff we'd be embarrassed about telling people.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, you know, there's other churches that I know where their pastors get paid like $130,000, you know, which is like, you know, more than twice what I make. And it's like, I didn't want to be the kind of guy who had to be embarrassed about telling people what I make.
Yeah.
In a town where I know people are like work hard for their money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think of other examples. It's hard to think of other examples without bashing other churches.
Yeah, I know it is. And I don't mean to do that.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to do stuff that you're embarrassed about. It's like, or like another example of integrity would be like when, let's say that David was going to step down as an elder. It's like, we want to be able to have like an open thing where it's like, hey, this is why he's stepping down, as opposed to like coming up with some like PR twist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like God's leading him in other ways.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
you fired him. Just say it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I think it would just, you know, just something simple like, oh, our elders dinner, we're all going to go to the Washington Inn and have an elders dinner. And then it's like, man, I hope no one knows from the church that that's what we did.
Right. Right.
You know? So no, I think that makes sense.
Everybody got loaded. Bill had to have his bear bring everybody home.
I do apologize. I don't know why I said that.
It was funny.
But I was just kind of thinking of a bear like carrying a guy home and tucking him into bed.
Yeah.
Maybe he just worked hard all day.
The bear. The
So
bear?
the man. That's why he fell asleep.
Oh, the man worked hard.
Yes.
Oh, he works hard.
Yep, for his money. So what was the next thing? You know, obviously operating with integrity is a good thing. What would be the next vision for Revolve in your list of
we had talked
dreams, your dream list?
You know, you've probably heard the old adage, 10% of people do 90% of the work.
I heard 80% of people doing 20% of the work, or 20% of the people doing 80% of the work.
It's the same idea, David.
Oh my goodness. Kodiak is here with us in the studio today, and he
loves sitting just on the wires.
He's
a cute puppy. Here, Cody, take a nap. So anyway, the whole 20% of people doing 80% of the work, whatever. So we wanted to break that. Then we felt like that's really unhealthy, and it should be everybody participating. And it should be, you know, everybody's kind of sharing the load, so to say.
No pew potatoes.
No pew potatoes.
That would be a cool sticker or a shirt.
Nope.
Revolve Church. No pew potatoes allowed.
That's it. No boat people.
We could do like lighthouses where it says no perfect people. We can just scratch it out. Be like, no pew potatoes allowed.
Oh, man. You had to.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. It's edgy. We're edgy here on the podcast.
Edgy. That's why they call us Edgy Revolve.
No one's ever said that.
This week on Edgy Revolve.
Next week when we do the podcast,
am I going to get canceled?
That's going to have foam over it or something, so you stop touching it.
I know. I know. It's just so fun.
Sometimes when I yell at Billy for fidgeting on the podcast, his mom will pull me aside and tell me, Billy's always been a fidgeter. He used to color on the couch. He used to color in the couches because he's a little fidgeter. Fidget Billy. That's true. They do call you that. All right. What else? What else in your dream?
Planning. Reed said to me, plan a church, not a service. Plant a church, not a service. That's what Reed said. That's good advice.
Well, what does that even mean? Because
it means you got to plant a church, not a service. No, so if you think about the modern church movement, like mega church culture, it's mostly about planting a Sunday morning experience. Like, think about Hillsong. It's like, it's all about the Sunday morning, or Bethel, or any of these things. It's like all about the Sunday morning experience.
Oh, okay.
Epic
that makes sense.
Music, epic teaching, you know, epic kidsmen. But it's just a service.
Yeah.
Whereas a church is supposed to love one another, share one another's burdens, encourage one another every day, you know, all that kind of stuff. And that's what actually makes up a church.
Yeah, but is that even biblical?
What?
All those things you said,
all
love one another.
Didn't Jesus say, give me an epic Sunday.
He did. He
He
said
like, best
Peter.
Sunday ever.
He's like, Peter, on this rock, I will rock. Did we just become best friends?
I don't know.
Wow, that was good.
Rock.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Not focusing on the service.
Yeah. So you have a great Sunday morning. Like, what about the rest of the week? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Anything else?
The last one was just no churchianity.
Is that even a word? Sounds like something you made up.
I don't know if I made it up, but I'll take credit for it. Churchianity is like American Christianity. I don't say American Christianity anymore because it sounds like a little offensive. Yeah. But no churchianity, as in, we didn't want the churchianity hoops of like, well, Bill better, dress this way and smile, and, Gina's got to be his trophy wife, and, that kind of stuff.
Which she is.
Well, yeah, she is.
Yeah. Just as a caveat, we want to make sure.
I mean, now that she chose me over Loiza.
I know. He probably he's probably listening to this podcast right now. Be like, ay, Gina got the way. I don't know how they speak in Czech Republic.
Gina got the way. Was he Wario from Mario Kart?
I never met the guy.
He's a nice guy.
I'm sure he's a nice guy if Gina was attracted to him.
But in all honesty, though, I feel like I just didn't want the American church thing, where it's like
where you have to one thing that often happens. Yeah, just don't interrupt me.
Sorry.
One thing that often happens is like we won't give an Easter sermon on Easter.
Yeah, I'll preach on wine.
Yeah. So you didn't want to just be like, we have to do this. Like, we have to do three songs.
We got to make a cross out of these palm fronds.
Yes.
On Palm Sunday. Otherwise, Jesus might not come back.
Yeah. So we're trying to keep it biblical.
Yeah. So a good example of like churchianity would be like this. It's so hard to answer these questions without bashing other churches. I don't know if I really want to do it.
So we basically, let's just say this. You wanted to plant a church that was biblical and didn't have all the excess baggage, which would be excess expense.
And running a church like a business instead of the church.
Yeah. You wanted to say, how do we have elder-led leadership?
Yeah.
How do we equip the saints for the work of the ministry? How do we live out to one another's?
Preach.
That's it.
No pew potatoes.
No pew potatoes. All right. So we've been going here for a while now and learning about the history of Revolve and you and Gina. I would like to hit one last thing. And we could talk about this and just kind of end this episode. Okay. And then we'll because we're not done. We're not close to being done.
Not even close to it.
But I would like to continue to record and we could play this, episode 2 on another day. But so why don't we end here?
Okay.
Talking about prayerlessness and the importance of prayer and maybe some answered prayers or some. Yeah. Let's do this.
Okay, I'm ready.
Big prayer requests.
Boom.
Episode 2. Will be the answers to the prayer.
Wow.
That'll be the hook to get people to come back in a couple weeks.
Okay.
So tell us about a history of prayerlessness. Why was prayer so important to you then and now? Because even now.
It all started a long time ago, David.
No, like now, you were just having a conversation with Gina before we recorded. And you said, let's get together. I think Gina actually said it. Let's get together at 5 and we're going to pray about this.
Yeah.
So even now, we were texting with the elders the other day, and Gina said, "Let's put a date on the calendar for the elders to get together and pray about this."
Yep.
So why?
Okay, so when I became a follower of Christ in freshman year, and did that whole thing I told you guys. Started walking, went to Czech Republic, canceled my flight home. Just stuff foolish, just like the foolish stuff you do when you're young and in love with Jesus. I don't even remember who got me a flight home. Someone did. I don't know who paid for it. I'm pretty sure Brian Robinson did. Shout out to Brian Robinson.
Does he listen?
He probably is listening.
Good.
And then September 11th happened, and people were just sharing the gospel. People were getting saved, all this kind of stuff. And then it was November. And Gina and we just decided to start dating. And around that same time, Phil Kagi was coming through town, and Phil Kagi was doing a concert at Calvary Chapel in Northeast Philly. And so my best friend, Scott, we had grown up together. I think we met like freshman year of high school. And we had been friends throughout high school. Like we played video games together and played Magic the Gathering together. We were in band, jazz band, all that kind of stuff together.
This kid sounds like a real cool cat.
He's a cool cat.
Just like you, Billy.
Thanks, David. And so anyway, so we decided to go to college together too. It was like I didn't even apply. I only applied at TCNJ, and they were like, "Well, you got in, and here's a scholarship, and Scott's going." It was like, "All right,
that's good.
That's it. Let's do it." And so Scott, I'd been praying since I became a believer. I'd been praying that Scott would come to faith, and we had lots of conversations. But like he was very quiet. Scott was a physics major, just that kind of personality. And so he came like to visit InterVarsity a few times, and like he would sneak in the back and then leave before it was over, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so he played guitar, a great guitar player, and he came to the Phil Keaggy concert with me, and they did like their shtick, Christian guitar player shared his testimony, and they did like some kind of like cheesy like drama to share the gospel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like a Lifehouse.
Yeah, just cheesy. And they were like, if anybody wants to follow Jesus, everybody close their eyes, and if you want to follow Jesus, raise your hand.
Okay.
And so I was cheating, and I had my eye open, and I saw Scott raise his hand.
Wow.
And I was like, woo. And then the ushers came up to get him, and he was like, I didn't raise my hand, that kind of thing. So anyway, so then like it was like Scott didn't raise his hand. He raised his hand, but he didn't want people to know it. And then like the next 2 weeks, I was just praying like, Lord, like Scott, I pray that Scott would tell me that he made this decision. I pray that he would tell me he made this decision. And he just wouldn't tell me, and I was getting real frustrated. And so I remember I was lying in our dorm room because we lived together, and I was on the top bunk, or I think whatever. I was staring at the ceiling, either the ceiling of the bunk or the ceiling of the room, and I just was praying, and I was thinking to myself, like, I can't handle this. I'm getting so frustrated. And I just said, God, if like I want Scott to be a believer, but like I feel like he's almost an idol in my life because I'm so obsessed with whether or not he's going to come to faith. And I said, Lord, like if Scott and I can't be friends, if you need to take him out of my life, then take him out of my life. And the next day was a Sunday. Went to church, came home. Scott said he had a headache. And I was like, well, you want to take some Advil or something? And he's like, I don't know, man, it's really bad. And I said something real dismissive, like, stop being a baby. You know what I mean? Something like that. And so I went across the hallway, was chatting with some other people. I came back in, and he was like, I'm really hurting. And I was like, all right, man. And then he like collapsed, and I dragged him into the bathroom because he thought he was going to throw up. And I ran upstairs to the RA to have the RA call 911. And it turned out he was having a brain aneurysm. And so by the time that they got, he technically stopped breathing in the ambulance. They revived him or resuscitated him or whatever. And then they did surgery on him for his brain. And so anyway, we called like a prayer meeting, and we had all the Christians in InterVarsity praying. And it was like, as we were praying, the surgery happened and it was successful. And so then they called me the next day. His mom called me, and she said, surgery went really well. He's stable. They're worried about like, is he going to lose mobility in his fingers, which would be terrible because he's a guitar player and all this kind of stuff. And so we just kept praying. And then 5 or 6 days later, he had a brain aneurysm. Not brain aneurysm. He got bacterial meningitis, and he died. And it was December 10th. And at the time, I mean, you're in like a total blur, you know what I mean? But I guess it was about 6 months later when I was like, all of a sudden it hit me that I had prayed that God would take Scott out of my life, and then he had a brain aneurysm. And in hindsight, now theologically knowing who God is and how he works, like I know that God doesn't answer flippant prayers. Like he's not like a twisted genie, you know what I mean? Where like you pray for something and then he gives you like a sick, demented version of it. So I know that, the God didn't kill Scott because I prayed it. But at the time, I became super fatalistic, where it was almost like, well, God's going to do whatever God wants to do, and so what's the point of even praying about it? Because he's just going to make up his mind. And I feel like over the next 3-4 years, I became super, super prayerless. And yeah, that was like my journey into prayerlessness. I became really rigid, really disciplined, really like works oriented, but not prayer focused. And then my in-laws introduced me to this guy named Daniel Henderson. Shout out, he probably listens to.
He's actually top subscriber.
Top subscriber, sponsoring this episode. And Daniel runs an organization called Strategic Renewal, and it's basically strategic renewal through prayer. And I went to this prayer retreat with Daniel, and like you just spend 3 days just worshiping in prayer. No requests, no intercession, just worship-based prayer. It's like 3 days of it. And God just like broke through some kind of callus when that happened. And it really like shook me up in a good way and started me back on a journey of praying. And I would say the purity of my prayer life was really the pure. Kodiak just like almost knocked that camera over. The purity of my prayer life was really impacted by that traumatic experience. And I don't know if it's ever recovered. The simplicity and purity of it, I don't think has ever recovered.
And what is Daniel Henderson's quote that we...
Prayerlessness is my declaration of independence from God. And so you can tell how much you rely on God by how much you pray. Yeah. And if you don't pray, it means you think you can do it on your own.
Yeah.
Which is where I was at.
And you share that quote often from the pulpit and even in discipleship relationships and all that. And I think that has helped, that experience has helped kind of lay some of the DNA to Revolve.
Yeah.
Because I know even in my own life, I think of that quote a lot of, prayerlessness being a declaration of independence from God.
Yeah.
So why don't you, thank you for sharing that story.
Sure.
Very, man, when you said you were going to share stories you hadn't shared before, everyone thought it was going to be something funny, something saucy.
Oh, I got those too. They're coming.
Yeah.
Part 2.
So why don't you list off a couple prayer requests?
Yeah.
That were like the big prayer requests, and then we'll end the episode there, and then we'll talk about how God answered those prayers in the next episode.
Sure. I think you need to remember when it comes to church planning, only idiots do it the way we did it. If you talk to 95% of people, they have a sending church or a sister church, and we had nothing. And so we were really, it was like, I call it parachute church planning. It's like we were literally, we didn't have friends. Like we didn't have any friends our age.
You got 2 or 3 now.
I got at least 2. I got Kodiak. I mean, I had to buy them.
Yeah.
But yeah, we didn't have any friendships to speak of. We didn't know people. We'd been living out of the country, all this kind of stuff. And so prayer requests. We were going to a church in Courthouse, and we wanted to make sure that we left that church well, and we wanted to give that a fighting chance. Like either God wants us to stick at this church and help it and like revitalize it, or he wants us to leave. But we knew we wanted to leave well, because we didn't feel like we left well in Spain. Second is we wanted team unity, because we had heard so many catastrophic stories from churches that we were like, I don't have no desire to be part of a church that's that demented.
Yeah.
Third, we didn't know where to begin. Like I told you guys about in Spain, it's like we didn't know where to begin. Mm-hmm. And so this was literally, let me just say this. One of the big reasons we started Revolve was because I feel like for years I asked people to disciple me and they said no. Like, I don't know if they were like threatened by my good looks or what, but they said no. And I was like, dang it, I'm going to plant a church that values this.
I don't know if people know how.
Well, that's probably what it is.
I think that's I think for me, it was that they didn't say no, but they didn't do it because they didn't know how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
just come on Wednesday.
But I don't think they were threatened by my good looks. So that's probably why they told you no.
Yeah, it's probably me. Yeah.
If you were like an average Joe like me, they would have just been like, I don't know how to do it.
Yeah. So we were
Yeah.
like, so we don't know where to begin, but we're going to figure this out. We had no money. When I say no money, I mean no money, because we had been missionaries and we were getting paid on the mission field $1,500 a month. We had no worship team. We didn't want to be gimmicky. We didn't want to be a church. I remember I used to say this to Gina. My biggest fear was planting a church that in 10 years I'd hate it. And thankfully that didn't happen. But I remember I used to say that all the time. I don't remember when I stopped saying that, but I used to saying that. My biggest fear was planting a church that I would hate in 5 years. We want to see people come, get saved, get discipled. Yeah. And all these things, we just knew we needed the Lord to really... we wanted to be missional. We wanted to have a big impact overseas, all that kind of stuff.
So this was like the prayer list of what you guys were working through.
Yep.
In this time between January and the first...
January and June.
January and June. 6 months of prayer.
Yep.
All right.
Oh, also during that time is when Gina and I started praying every morning together, because Gina would get really stressed if we didn't. That was like, in all honesty, she was the impetus for it, because she was like, I need to pray or I'm going to be stressed about this church planning thing. And me, I was still wrestling with prayerlessness. So, I was like improving, but still struggling with it. And so we would we'd get up and we would have our quiet times, and then we'd spend a half hour in prayer together as a couple after we were done with our separate quiet times. And that became a pattern for, the last 10 years, though we've had seasons that, with work and kids, there's been seasons where it's easier versus more difficult, but yeah.
All right. Well, I hope you have enjoyed that little history lesson of Bill and Gina, and hearing some more of the stories of kind of the birth of Revolve. And then, so we're going to come back probably not next week, but in the next couple of weeks, we're going to do a series 2, or not series 2, episode 2. It's going to be probably the week of like the 20th of June.
Yeah, that would be like 2 weeks basically.
So yeah.
Father's Day week.
Yep, Father's Day week. We will finish this segment of history of Revolve, 10 years of
Bayou Billy. And the Big Mac.
I really wanted to have something good there.
10 years of
Jesus.
Of Jesus tolerating us. No, 10 years of having no idea what we're doing.
10 years. Any idiot could do it.
10 years. Idiot's Guide to...
By the grace of God.
Discipleship.
All right. That's it, folks. We will see you next week. See you Sunday. Breton is going to be launching our new Psalms series, I guess.
Psalms, yep.
Series on the Psalms with...
Salty Palmer.
All right.
Take it easy, guys.